The Big Ten continues to win the biggest games in college football. Now they're winning on the recruiting trail too. When will the nightmare end for the SEC?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. It is a Locked On College crossover of Hoosiers and Nittany Lions. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. He is Zach Seyko, the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. And thank you so much for making our shows your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is the nation's #1 sports podcasting network. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and you can get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Well, the football schedules have been released for 2026. We'll talk about that, comparing Indiana and Penn State. Plus, we'll talk about some of those portal additions as well, as some people not in love with Penn State right now. They'll have something to prove on the field this fall. But Seyko, the New York Times tells us that while the Big Ten continues to win national championships, they're now winning on the recruiting trail too. And this is just a disaster for the SEC, right? They don't know what to do right now.
The Big Ten is now the new recruiting bully, according to the New York Times. It just gets worse for the SEC. And now I will, here's the thing though. I will push back on this a little bit because I said, this is interesting. If they're the new recruiting bully, then what does this look like? Okay, USC's #1 in the 2026 recruiting rankings. Okay, Oregon's up there, Notre Dame's up there, and they don't have a conference. Join a conference, right? Join the Big Ten. But that it definitely shows a little bit of a slide. I wouldn't go to say that they're a bully, because then you would think, okay, well, it's USC, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Indiana. You think it would be absolutely flooded with Big Ten teams in the top 10. That's not exactly the case. But what I do want to point out is talent is not the issue with the SEC. There are tons of talented players that still go to that conference. My gripe is, why is it not translating to wins? Why is it not? Why is the Big Ten? We know because the Big Ten conference has now taken over as the top conference. And It's not just, it's top heavy, right? No, so talent is not the issue here, Jacob. It's the fact that talent isn't leading to more wins. It's the fact that you go into bowl season, and this is an article referring to the 2026 classes. Okay, well, if the Big Ten wasn't that proverbial bully in 25 and 24 and 23, right? So surely the SEC would have won all these consequential games the past few seasons. Not exactly. Not quite. The issue is coaching. The coaching in the SEC is they can recruit. They can recruit like all heck. So why isn't it translating to wins? That means it's coaching. So the coaching is not even close to the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what the recruiting classes are. You talk about the 2026 class, but you go back, right, to 2025, because the 26 kids obviously haven't made an impact yet. The 25 class and the 24 class, right? SEC had the top 3 recruiting classes in 2025. They had the top 2 recruiting classes in the 2024 class, according to 24/7 Sports. But yet, here's the Big Ten, as you said, has taken over winning college football. And Zach, the SEC's winning games. They're just winning against each other. They're not actually winning the ones that matter. That's what they like to tell people. It just means more, man. We beat Vanderbilt. We beat Auburn. We beat, Mississippi State. Who cares? You're losing when you get to the big time games, and the Big Ten is dominating college football. So I agree. I think the Big Ten is bullying the SEC.
I mean, it's more embarrassing. It's embarrassing how you're getting all this. And the New York Times article even acknowledges and says, well, it's not a total comprehensive. It's going and framing it from the fact that the SEC used to dominate recruiting rankings. That's the literal word for word, that they were dominating. But now USC's #1, Oregon's in the top 5, Ohio State's usually roots. It was basically the SEC and Ohio State, and maybe Notre Dame would get in there, or you would have Michigan kind of sneak in there as well. But now you are seeing, again, USC vault to the top, Oregon be in there, and it pushes out some of the SEC teams. Again, I default back to talent's not the issue. Player personnel is not the issue. Why is it not leading to more wins? That's where you need. So it's more, and I think this is only going to continue to trend in the favor of the Big Ten. So I'm not ready to declare all these recruiting victories. Good for Ohio State, good for USC and Oregon. But I do think this is going to continue to trend in favor of the Big Ten because, like we see with Indiana and the portal additions here, you're just going to only attract more high quality talent. The more those bowl games matter. Okay, those games matter. They see that. Well, this is 2-8 in bowl season. Why are we losing to games where you say, SEC football, it's different. Surely we should win by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns against a measly Big Ten team. We got to start talking about measly SEC teams.
I agree. I totally agree. And that's the thing is with Indiana, right? They are the anomaly. The Hoosiers are the ones that it was the tipping point for the SEC because that conference.
Oh, they hate Indiana. They hate.
Oh, yeah. Them. Well, they could at least make themselves feel better or at least talk themselves into it being okay when it was Michigan and Ohio State winning national championships. They were like, okay, all right, we don't like it, but at least those are big brands. They're historic. It makes sense for those guys to win championships every now and then. Then comes Indiana, who we know was historically the losingest team in the history of college football. Here comes this old guy with glasses and making funny faces, and he comes in and wins a national championship. Oh, by the way, with a recruiting class that was in the 30s. The SEC can't stand it. They cannot stand it. And Indiana's not going anywhere. That's going to make them even more mad. So I think New York Times article is correct. I think Big Ten fans are correct. I think the narrative is spot on that this conference, our conference, is bullying the SEC, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. A team that needs to be involved in this conversation, though, is Penn State. And you think they can be that in 2026, but others, not so much. We'll talk about how the Nittany Lions can get back to relevancy, ton of portal additions, and Indiana reloaded too. We talk about those two things coming up next on this Locked On Crossover. This episode of a Locked On Crossover is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or you're building one last same game parlay for Seahawks and Patriots, this is the game that everyone has been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels a little bit bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. So if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count because after the Super Bowl, the season, it is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com right now to get started. All right, we continue on with this Locked On Crossover. He is Zach Seyko, the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here, making us your first listen or your first watch every single day. That's a weekday, weekend, holiday, doesn't matter. We are here for you. So
Always.
Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channels. We don't go anywhere. We don't sleep. We just crank out content, man. That's all we do.
That's our job, but we do it for you.
Yes, and we love what we do. We're very blessed to do what we do. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you never miss episodes of Locked On Nittany Lions and Locked On Hoosiers. Follow us on your audio podcasting platforms as well. And you can check out our Everydayer Club in the description below. Let's talk a little transfer portal, Zach, because both of our squads, Indiana and Penn State, made major additions in the offseason. Penn State, new coach, everybody left, so they had to bring in new players. Indiana trying to reload and go back-to-back and winning a national title. But you're concerned because people aren't buying into Penn State right now, right? You're saying this is blasphemy that people aren't believing in Matt Campbell and the Nittany Lions.
I just don't think people are taking them seriously. It's not a matter of buy-in or disrespect. It's just, it's Penn State. It's Matt Campbell. They'll be 7-5, 8-4. They just took Iowa State players, and it's that passivity. It's that we're just going to gloss over Penn State. We're not going to take them seriously. That's going to be, for the most part, the national conversation.
That
Okay.
bothers you, though. Why?
I mean, it bothers me because Penn State's in a position to win right away in 2026. If you think they're going to be 7-5 and 8-4, I mean, I'll take that a little disrespectfully. I think this is a 10-2 team. Part of that has to do with the favorable schedule. I mean, they're playing all the, and it stinks, right? I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like that there's no Indiana on the schedule. There's no Oregon. There's no Ohio State, right? That's the first time. Even if Penn State loses to Ohio State routinely, I still want that game on the schedule. That is one of the most entertaining. So we're kind of back to this idea that Penn State basically has to look forward to 2 games, and the rest of them, it's a cakewalk. The rest of the way. Michigan and USC. Maybe you could make an argument for Washington. Hey, that one's in Seattle. You can, but basically everyone's going to have USC and Michigan circled. So I understand it. It's an easy schedule. I don't think anybody's going to bat an eye if Penn State goes 10-2, and then it's, why'd you fire James Franklin for Matt Campbell if you're going to get the same net result? But here's the thing though. There's a chance that Penn State can overachieve, and that's the point of moving on from James Franklin, is that you want to be in a better position to beat a USC. You want to be in a better position to beat a Michigan, and not just write it off and say, those are your 2 losses. You're 10-2. Hey, that's great. So Penn State, I think for the most part, people are just overlooking the team and saying it's just Iowa State 2.0. And look at the players that Penn State retained, and then added all of most of the capable players that were on that Iowa State team. That's why I think this team is going to be really good. And they're not that far away from Michigan. They're not that far away from USC. I think those teams are really good and could be dark horse contenders in the Big Ten next season. But those 2 teams aren't well ahead of Penn State. They can absolutely beat them. And it would not shock me if Penn State does do something like go 11-1. They mess around, go 11-1, and get in the playoff.
But is it not the idea that it's a year 1 head coach with a brand new team? How many portal additions officially? What's the number? Do you remember? I mean, it's 30 plus, right? I mean, 30 over that, probably pushing 40. Yeah. So, I mean, there will be some growing pains there. And even though a lot of them are Iowa State guys.
I mean, speak for yourself, right? Indiana made the college football playoff in year 1 of Kurt Cignetti.
Yeah, but it wasn't pretty to start, and you still had some growing pains and some bumps and things, but you can get it figured out, especially with a favorable schedule like Indiana had in the first year of Kurt Cignetti. And so, but with that though, it's year 1. Like, shouldn't expectations in general be not limited, but they shouldn't have that much of a stranglehold? I feel like there shouldn't be.
I don't think there are any. Internally, there are no expectations. I mean, if they go 6-6 or 7-5,
sure,
it's disappointing. It's underwhelming. If Penn State ends up going 9-3 and loses all of those big games, so to speak, Washington, USC, and Michigan alike, it's disappointing from you could have done better. I'm not mad at a 9-3 record. I think that's great to build some confidence and some momentum for, like you said, a first year. But this schedule, man. And it's not like Washington is a juggernaut. It's not like Michigan is the team. They're the title contender. USC is the title contender this year. If it was Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon as those 3 games instead, I'd say, okay, but I have a reasonable expectation that Penn State, because it's a good coaching staff, because it's a veteran team, you retained a lot of good players and then added some more good players. Why can't I want 10-2 and 11-1? Why do I have to settle and say, 8-4 in a bowl game? Why shouldn't Penn State overachieve with this group? So it's the same thing. Indiana, they lose a bunch of players, but your expectation is to be right back in the playoff. Kind of the same thing with Penn State here. I expect Penn State to be in the mix and be competitive.
Yeah, no doubt that Indiana expects to be right back where they were, and that's a top seed in the playoff, competing for the Big Ten and competing for a national title because, you do lose a lot of guys. You didn't lose any significant players to the portal, thankfully. You lost some, but that's inevitable. But the ones you lost either ran out of eligibility or are going to the NFL draft. Guys
it's like who you got back.
Yeah, D'Angelo Ponds and guys like that. But yeah, it's who you bring back. I mean, you bring back several players on offense. You bring back a ton of players on defense, including guys like Amari Farrell at the safety spot. You bring back your starting interior defensive line. You bring back 2 or 3 guys on the offensive line, depending on how that rotation works out. Then you go and get a starting quarterback, you get a starting running back, you get a couple of starting receivers, including Nick Marsh. I mean,
and you say, you say it so casually. It's
right.
just, it's not just, oh, they're starting caliber. No, these are all conference guys, man.
Yeah, all
give them more
guys.
credit. Pump that conversation up. Nick Marsh is behind Jeremiah Smith. I will stand by the fact that I think Nick Marsh, you give him good coaching, a supporting cast, an actual quarterback, dude's number 2 wide receiver in the Big Ten. And I hate that he didn't go to Penn State. That is one of those recruiting battles. If you want to talk it, that domino meme with the small domino that leads all the way to the big giant one of why Penn State had 0 catches from their wide receivers in a semifinal game against Notre Dame, and then James Franklin gets fired. It's because they didn't win the recruiting battle for Nick Marsh. That is the personification of that meme.
Yeah.
And now you have him. Now he's in Bloomington. Great player.
Now he's a Hoosier. Now he's wearing the cream and crimson. He's going to be phenomenal. And then defensively, you reload as well. So yeah, it's funny to compare where Indiana and Penn State are, because Indiana fans are like, yep, we're the best it's ever been. We're going back to back. And they should feel that way because of Signetti and your coordinator staying, right? Nobody significant left off your coaching staff. Penn State, you're starting over. But I agree with you that the Nittany Lions will be more talented. And we're going to talk the full schedules coming up in our final segment. But wouldn't you say that Penn State will be more talented than all but maybe 1 or 2 teams on their schedule next season?
And starting over is a little bit, I guess, I mean, it's incorrect. I would say they're shuffling the deck. It's a reshuffling of the deck. I don't know that they're not, if starting over would look like 6-6, 7-5, and like, hey, they're favored. They should be favored against a majority of those teams. Again, you don't know what's going to happen when it rolls around. That I think USC is really good, and I expect them to be favored in that game, but we don't know for sure. And Penn State, that's going to be a 1-score projection one way or another. That's going to be a 1-score projection against Michigan, Washington, and USC. Penn State's going to be right in those games. That's not a 2-touchdown, 3-touchdown. Unless, injuries, of course, can happen, right? We know that on either side. But I look at all those games, and they're all winnable. And Penn State should be favored in at least 9 of them. So that's just kind of, it's the luck of the draw. And I hate it. I'd rather be sitting here and doing an early game preview with you. Instead, we got to watch from afar. Hey, how you doing over there?
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk more about those schedules and dive a little bit deeper, the trends that are in there. I talked earlier this week on Locked On Hoosiers. There's a 3-game stretch that determines if Indiana can go back-to-back as national champions, plus how Penn State could be a dark horse for the college football playoff. That's coming up next on this Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Nittany Lions. This Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Nittany Lions is brought to you by Mazda's, moving the game forward. For those who showed, there's more to the score than what's on the screen. And I'm going to talk about a little Indiana basketball for just a second. Take a sidestep from football and get to the hardwood, because our guy Nick Dorn has been unbelievable. He steps into the starting lineup. He helps you beat Rutgers. He helps you beat Purdue. And Indiana's starting to build just a little bit. I mean, this guy could not miss against the Boilermakers the other night. Had 18 points, 4 of 9 from downtown, grabs a couple of boards, 3 steals as well, and Indiana takes down their rival in the midweek and getting ready for a big one on Saturday. It's these types of moments and performances that remind us what it really takes to raise the bar. It's the extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it the extra fire, that grit, and the I never quit. So we put that same passion into every model at Mazda. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right, final segment on this Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Nittany Lions. And we've kind of bled into this segment a little bit about the schedule for Penn State and for Indiana. All schedules released across the Big Ten this week for the 2026 season. And Zach, you've made your statement. You don't like the schedule. It's easy for Penn State. It's favorable, I guess, is a word you could use for Penn State. And you feel like they should be favored in most of their games. But is there a stretch in there that concerns you? Are there back-to-back games or a road trip or anything like that for you, at least right now, that concerns you for the Penn State football schedule this season?
Yeah, those two toughest games are back to back. Penn State gets to host
Okay.
USC, and then they go on the road against Michigan, and that's more or less their season. And then eventually, that in November, they'll go out to Seattle. There's a couple of games that I look at. Maybe you could trip Penn State up, Minnesota, but that's what we're talking about here. It's not a gauntlet of Oregon, Indiana, and then it's all of them, right? It's all of them at once, something like that, where it'd be Oregon, Ohio State, and then you get a little bit of a buffer. Maybe you get a bye, and then it's Michigan and USC. No, it's you have your non-conference schedule. You'll play Wisconsin, who has not been good. You will play Northwestern. Then you have, if I have this correct, I don't have it up in front of me. Maybe I should. But I know for a fact that USC and Michigan back to back like that is it's not daunting in the scheme of things because it's the heart of your schedule, and you're going to have that across the board. So if that's the conversation that we're having, then that's where I'll put a lid on things. If that's the worst it's going to be, that you're going to play your two toughest games back to back, so be it. And again, it's not Ohio State and Oregon. It's not Indiana. It's that second tier of, hey, these guys could be sneaky good for the Big Ten Conference, or maybe even get to the title game in USC and Michigan. And then Penn State's kind of the lead in that tier 3 of, this is where you want to leapfrog. This is where you want to use those games as a trampoline and say, this is the Matt Campbell era. We're here. And I think it's a perfect stepping stone if you do what James Franklin never did, and that was win the big game.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and jump out in front of this for you. With a favorable schedule like this, Penn State will win a majority of their games. They'll be in the playoff conversation, and then everybody will be having the debate of how good is Penn State? How true are the Nittany Lions? I mean, you can only play the teams on your schedule. We hear that all the time, but Indiana's in the same boat early on in the season. We both have extremely strong, difficult non-conference schedules that we will not discuss any further because they are the most difficult schedules in the
country. Don't look it up.
No, don't look it up. Just take our word for it, okay? We'll both be 3-0, and then Indiana starts with Northwestern and Rutgers. Like, we're in the same boat. Minnesota's on our schedule. Purdue's on our schedule, right? But the Hoosiers are in a different boat, and kind of similar with Penn State with the opponents, funny enough. We have a 3-game stretch that I've talked about that will tell us everything we need to know about this Indiana team in 2026. You go at Nebraska on October 10th, home for Ohio State in Bloomington. The Buckeyes come to Memorial Stadium on October 17th, and then you turn right back around and go up to Ann Arbor and play the Michigan Wolverines. So Nebraska, Ohio State, and Michigan. That'll tell me everything I need to know. 2 of those being on the road, Ohio State making a trip to Bloomington. Those are all a really big deal. But funny enough, Indiana also hosts USC. Indiana also goes out to Washington. Those games both in November. So those are everything we need to know for Indiana. And you have a chance to take advantage of Rutgers, Minnesota, Purdue, Northwestern on the schedule. But how do you do against the big teams, the good teams of the Big Ten? But for Penn State, again, I can hear it now is, who do they beat? I mean, are we really going to give them credit for their weak schedule? If they beat some of the good teams, Zach, I think they deserve some credit.
I mean, they almost have to go 11-1, 12-0 to get respect. I don't think anybody is. Again, it's going to be more of, okay, you're 10-2, and you lost to Michigan and USC. So what?
Yeah,
I can absolutely. I can absolutely see this conversation being that you got exactly what you had before. Why'd you move on from James Franklin? Why'd you do all of that? And you know what? I'm not going to enjoy that conversation if it happens, because the whole point of this move was so that Matt Campbell can beat one. I would rather there are 2 different versions of 10-2. Right?
Yeah. It's got to look different. It has to look different than it used to.
If you lose on the road, let's just give an example. You lose on the road to Washington, but you beat one of USC or Michigan. That is massively different. Crazy to think. It's massively different than losing to USC and Michigan. I'm not really excusing a Washington loss. I wouldn't want that to happen. Or say you win all those games. Say you win all of those games, but you get upset by somebody that you're not supposed to lose to. It's still about winning the whiteout game against US. That's going to be the whiteout. We know that mostly for a fact. We're speculating, but it's going to be the USC. And then Michigan on the road. When did James Franklin, the 2020 season, okay, but all the other times you got it flat out embarrassed by Michigan when you went out to Ann Arbor. So when the big games, if Penn State gets upset along the way, it's, hey, you finally defeated. So there are different versions of 10-2. I can take an upset loss, which isn't going to be great, and it's not going to help the resume, but I want to beat Michigan in their house.
Yeah.
I want to beat USC when they make that cross-country trip and not, walk into your stadium and you leave with a win. I'm tired of that. That was the whole point of this coaching change.
Doesn't that describe Matt Campbell, though, as a head coach, historically, can win the big games? He'll lose one every now and then. He's probably not supposed to, but he was also coaching at Iowa State, and you expect him to take it up a notch when he coaches at Penn State with the guys he brought over and the guys you retain. So, look, I think any disrespect that Penn State gets in the offseason is probably undeserved. I think it's a lot of recency bias, and that's how people work in college athletics, unfortunately. But for Indiana, it's the exact opposite. That was cool. Can you do it again? How good will Indiana really be now that Fernando Mendoza's not there and Elijah Surratt's not there and D'Angelo Pons and Aiden Fisher, all those guys that are now going to the league? But Indiana reloaded, brother. They reloaded, and this schedule's not bad at all. Again, Northwestern, at Rutgers, at Nebraska, home for Ohio State, at Michigan, home for Minnesota, woohoo, bye week, USC at home, Washington and Seattle, and then Purdue at home. There are some tough games, and I think Indiana needs that, but the Hoosiers are going to be just fine. And the 5-0 start, it will be the longest 5 weeks to start the season because Indiana will not be challenged, which then does concern me a little bit when they go on the road to Nebraska. But it is what it is. Schedules are released, which means we're just a day closer to the start of college football, which is crazy to talk about in late January, early February, but it's the truth. We're counting down the days in Happy Valley and in Bloomington. He is Zach Seyko, the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm Jacob Goins, the host of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channels. Follow us on your audio podcasting platforms as well, as we post every single day for you there. Until next time, Nittany Lions and Hoosier fans, stay safe, and we will talk to you later.